Thank you for joining us on Play With It with Cass Allen. This week we're talking about the different types of family members that we'll be exploring throughout the next few weeks as we talk about human relationships. Today we're moving on to siblings. And by siblings, the traditional definition is in place. Kids that come from the same bloodline, whether it's full or shared, whether it's through your maternal line, your paternal line, or a combination of both. This also includes, as we mentioned earlier, children who are adopted and under different types of blended families that take place today. You can have someone that has adopted 8 kids. The kids could be from 8 different countries, but those kids are siblings if they're under one parentage. So we're speaking in those terms as well, not just biological, but blended families that create siblings. A lot of us have siblings. Some of us obviously don't, so this is not for you people who do not have any siblings. I'm talking to people who have siblings. The relationships among the siblings can be very interesting. We're speaking of different types of sibling relationships, but we also have different types of sibling unions based on parentage. We have twins, triplets, quadruplets. We have identicals, we have fraternals, we have the ones that have no relation to the same birth moment. We have kids that are born on the same day in different years. Siblings have all types of different unions that are also taken into account when we discuss the relationships with them. Sometimes you have a pair of siblings who are born in said year and the next set don't come for another 15 years. So siblings may not even foster a relationship. But as we explore siblings over the next few weeks, we will be discussing the impact that our siblings have in our lives. This is a heavy time for me in memory of my brother. My big brother just passed a couple of weeks ago. So I personally have spent quite a bit of time over the last couple of weeks, rekindling all of my memories of my brother and, what we shared together, good, bad, and indifferent. Like nature would have it, thinking of what life could have been like this way, or also taking all the pebbles. I was forced to analyze my relationship with my sibling, where some of us are not, So I definitely will be contributing to that area in upcoming weeks of, the impact that my sibling has on me. I now have my first deceased sibling, actually. And I'm blessed to have a couple of more siblings. I have a couple of more sisters, who came into my life at a later stage. As I mentioned, sometimes, sibling relationships are determined by longevity. We're not all born under the same family, one every 2 years or 3 years. That's not the way life goes. My other siblings and I have a 10-year gap. And our split is through our mothers. We are bonded through our father. So that will be another level of relationships that we'll be discussing. Sometimes siblings are in a healthy family. You can have the same parents, but due to age gaps, you never form a relationship. I had a favorite cousin at one time who was a little older than the rest of us, and he had a sibling. And they were I would say about 13 years apart. So by the time the female got older and was looking to her older brother to, have her back, he was off in the military. So they didn't get to experience that sibling thing that, some do when they're closer in age. As you all know, and I've heard through my friends, and I've even gone through at times, sibling relationships can get very interesting. There can be rivalries, with siblings wanting more attention from their parents than others, or feeling that they are lacking in general, or favoritism they feel is being upholded due to different types of punishments as they may perceive them. There's the rivalry of one sibling getting more attention outside of the house, perhaps getting more dates or being idolized as better in a sport or in a category of any kind. A lot of times people grow up and they still have the scars of not just their parents, as we talked about yesterday, but the scars of how you're treated by your siblings. I know I have some great memories of my brother, because he's the one I grew up with. I didn't grow up with my sisters. As I said, I met them at a later stage, but I would call them nothing else because that's who they are to me. But my vivid memories are of my brother, as a sibling. The days we laughed together, the days we tried to fuck each other up, the days we schemed together, to fix some shit we broke while mommy was at work, And after we fix it, then we go to fucking each other up again, that kind of fun. I hope that as we do explore siblings, for those of you who do, or maybe require some repairs in your relationships, that, we can laugh about some things and together, me, come up with some tips on how we can handle some of this shit and unpack it, before we do meet our demise, I'm blessed that even in the passing of my brother, I have no shame about our relationship. I have no guilt. I have no sorrow. My sorrow comes from the loss of a king, My brother represented a king in my family as one of the rare men that survive in the black heritage of the South. Let's just call it what it is, that longevity. There are a lot more queens than kings in the black culture. And I'm not talking about the ability for a man to rise. I'm talking about population. Just that plain and simple. So it's a great loss, I hope that as you all move forward with your relationships, whether they're broken or estranged or whatever label you choose to put on them, that, you find the grace to ask yourself, if you were on the outside looking in, or I always ask myself, if I was my mother, what would she want for her kids? And, when I would get pissed at my brother, that's what would bring me back around. Even if I wanted to turn my nose up at him, I understood the role that my mother wanted us to play in each other's life. And I don't feel like I would be able to honor her if I turned my back on him, because she birthed us both. And she wanted us to both to have an equally fulfilling life and a successful life. And, as many parents call out on their deathbed, she wanted us to take care of each other. So, like my other older siblings, they have their little tips like we all do. I'm sure 95% of you, if not 100, can identify with this shit. The people that are closest to you are the ones you're going to have the arguments every now and then, because they see the most of you. Who better than your brothers and sisters? That's what we do growing up. We knuckle each other, punch each other, all kinds of shit. So that's what I'm speaking to. I'm not speaking to anything deep and earth-shattering. We'll talk about those things in families at another time. But hopefully you can, call back like, and remember the good times if you have damaged times, and somehow find your way to peace. Y'all already know we're not going to go deep into this right now because it's not the time. We're simply identifying the different levels that are going to be discussed over the next 5 weeks in terms of family and the impact that different relationships had, and this has been broken down into 5 relationships because each one is treated differently usually. You don't treat your siblings the same way you treat your parents. Your siblings, you look them right in the eye and be like, fuck you. Try that with a parent. Well, at least from my generation. I know some of you kids out here today can do it. But it's not normal where you're not going to feel the wrath of your parent trying to remind you who the fuck the creator is. As opposed to your sibling, you'll fight them, but raise your hand at your mother. And that's why we're breaking these relationships down into the main ones, that are close to your immediacy. As well as unpacking them by different types of relationships because they're handled differently. So like I said, up and coming, you're going to hear about it. Thank you for joining me today for Play With It. Have a good day and have a good night.